What's up, guys? It's Bradley with the Insurance Guys Podcast, and I'm doing this week's listener review. This review is from Brad Do. That's Brad D-O. Brad says, I come away with actionable steps after every episode. Thank you guys for amazing training that our captive companies are not providing. Wow. If we could not do a whole episode on that subject right there. Brad, really appreciate it. Keep sharing the episode with all your captive buddies. Want to help you guys and help every insurance agent out there. Enjoy this week's show.
Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys Podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Saraland, Alabama, Parade First Team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and the agency owner of Portal Insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
Great, Scott. How are you today?
You are looking dapper today.
Thanks, buddy.
I may try to pick you up before I go home tonight.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah, Bradley, I want you to tell everybody, I set the scene for those of the listening audience that are not able to see us right now. Tell them what we're doing right now while we're interviewing.
We're recording 52 podcasts today, so we're having to silently eat lunch.
They are, I'm not, but they are silently eating crystals, which I have not had a crystal since I was about a junior in college and drank about a handle of Jack Daniels, and everybody was like, let's go to Crystals.
Try to get the quickest thing we could that would be delivered. So.
Absolutely. Guys, I'm excited about our podcast guest today. We are going to talk about a topic today that I personally am very interested in because I represent all of you. Now, let me say this. The topic of conversation today is going to be on automation. Bradley is extremely good at automation. He does a great job of it in his new brand spanking new agency. He is on top of his game. Me, on the other hand, not so much. We have not automated hardly anything at all, and it's something that our guest today is an expert on in the industry, and I want to talk about it so that we can get off this podcast and go back and implement some of this stuff in our agency. Our mission on this show, help you guys any way we can. The future in the insurance business is automation and trying to automate enough, a lot of things in your agency to make your agency more fluid, work better, all of those things. And we're going to talk about that with our guest here shortly. So without further ado, he was born in Independence, Missouri, and he currently lives in Blue Springs, Missouri. He has a beautiful wife named Bree, and he graduated from Graceland University. He is the founder of both Agent Ascend and Beacon Point Insurance, and he is an expert in the industry on automation inside the insurance space. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and welcome the other incomparable Mr. Travis Gensler. How are you, Travis?
I'm good. Thank you.
Man, thank you for being on the show today, brother. I am excited to have you on here. I know this is going to be a topic of conversation that a lot of people in the industry are excited to hear about because you hear the word automation, and to me, it's a scary word. For Bradley, it's like, okay, let's automate everything. Talk to us a little bit before we get started today. Tell us, climb in the passenger seat of my DeLorean and go back in time for a minute and just tell us how you got into the industry and kind of work us up to today.
About a decade ago, we were in a situation where I needed to find something to do because we ran a marketing agency before. And the only thing that you can really count on, no matter what economic cycle you're in, is really insurance and money, banking system. So I was like, you know what? I used to mow yards, and the two guys that always seemed to have money were the insurance agents. And so I was like, I'm going to go do insurance. So fast forward, I started with farmers, saw the writing on the wall about 6 months into it, planned my escape, opted for early retirement.
It sounds like you were a hostage in Iran somewhere or something. That's playing my escape. I love it.
Well, I didn't say that, but it felt like it from time to time.
Right.
As far as what you can do for your clients, but that's why we're all independent. So, from there, learned about the independent side and decided, hey, if you're going to do it. So we jumped and went fully independent from there forward.
Right. Now, tell me, I want to hear a little bit more. I've been doing a little bit of research, but I want to hear more about Agent Ascend. I want to hear about that a little bit more.
Well, that's actually just kind of a starting point for the automated insurance agency group.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the automated insurance agency group is really where all the action is. The Agent Ascend was more my side consulting deal to help people just with technology in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's so much opportunity for agents to be better agents by applying technology. So that's kind of where that spurred from.
Agent Ascend, you started going out and actually working with agents like myself that felt like the word automation was a dirty word and didn't really understand how to even get started. And you started going out and assisting those agents with helping with automation and doing those types of things.
Yeah. And it was one of those things that, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be automation, just technology in general.
Right.
It seems like our industry is so backwards when it comes to technology. And I've always been into technology. I went to college, started out in the computer programming department. So I've always been fascinated with what technology can do.
Right.
And so that's where it spurred. And I actually gained just as much insight talking to those 100+ agency owners than I probably gave back to them, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So tell me, here we are. It's January of 2020. I know this podcast won't come out until probably the February-March timeframe, but we're still going to be in the first quarter of 2020. Tell me some things that these agents listening to this today, I want them to be able to get off the podcast and go back to their offices and be able to implement some things. Just, let's start crawling before we run, right? So talk a little bit about some things that you see from an agency perspective that these guys can do to help them automate their own agency.
Well, really, the biggest thing that I learned is most agencies out there they were all started by a sales guy, really, for the majority of the agencies. And most salespeople aren't super good at business in general as far as systems go, because they just kind of do their thing. And then when they start adding people to support them, all of a sudden your office is running with a couple people with nothing written down. There's no standardized process. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you start applying technology to that, it's just going to expose some weaknesses that you may or may not, or maybe you don't want to actually admit that those things are going on in your office. And so my biggest advice is figure out exactly what you want to do before you even start looking at programs. Because I see people all the time, they're like, oh, what management system do you use? Or what automation program or tool do you use? And it's like, you're going at it backwards. Yeah, it's really sexy and cool to talk about the programs, but if that's not going to solve your problem, you're just wasting time and money.
Sure. And so tell me again, what is the first step? They need to figure out exactly what they want. And let's say they do that, whether that's, when you say figure out what they want, like what management system they do want to use and those types of things. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what do you want for your agency and your client experience to be?
Right.
Okay. And it's not just, because we all have headaches in our office today. And I can't remember, I commented on somebody's post on Facebook last week, and I was like, the technology challenges of 2019 are not technology challenges of 2020. So you have to look out 3 to 5 years where you're going to be, because it's going to take you a while to develop some of these systems.
Right.
It's not an overnight success. And that's probably the biggest thing is everybody wants a quick button. They just want to plug a program in to do it. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot more, it's not sexy saying this, but it's a lot more work than most people think about when they get into it. Or when they get into it, they're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore, because they don't want to do the hard work. But there's a lot of stuff you got to do to just set yourself up for success.
Sure. So let's take you, for example. What are some things that you've done in your agency, Beacon Point? What are some things that you've done that you're proud of relative to looking out 3 to 5 years, and some automation type things you've done to set you guys up for success?
Failed. I failed probably more times than anybody else out there, because I'm not scared to try things and take a step backwards.
Right.
I get a concept and I start working on it, and if it doesn't work, I might have taken a step backwards on where I'm at, but as long as you learn from it, and you know how to tweak and go forward, that's the only way you're going to make progress. So, I don't hide from the failures, and there's a lot out there that probably have more technology. I'm kind of the, what's the old saying, the car repairman that drives the broken down car.
Right.
Because I'm always tinkering with it.
Right. I understand. So, Bradley, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What are some automated things that you've done in your agency that you feel like, man, I've done this, it works. I feel like other agents should implement this as well in their agency, whether it's like you were talking yesterday about your VA sending out, I think it was late pay letters, things like that. What are some of the things you've done in your agency?
So we sort of marry the VA work with the automation. You know, I'm having my VA do a lot of things right now that I could automate that I'm not, because I'm kind of seeing how that process goes,
right,
and seeing how the customers react to it, and then I'm going to automate it,
right.
But things from when a policy goes into late pay status, they get a text message, automated text message saying, "Hey, just noticed this bill was past due."
Sure. Is that text message originating from your management system?
The management system triggers it.
Gotcha.
Yes. The management system triggers it.
Does somebody though physically have to push a button before that letter goes out?
So right now, well, it's not a letter; it's a text.
I'm sorry, text.
But right now, yes.
Okay.
But it very, very soon, when we first opened, I had it automated.
Right.
But obviously there's situations, so we're currently trying to figure out a workflow that allows that to be automated without having someone to do it. When I was just talking to Travis before we came on, through youve.com, I've got an automated. So I decided about 2 months ago I was not going to rely on carriers to send cancellation letters for me. We do have a lot of agency billed homeowners policies because we are coastal. So that puts obviously a lot of responsibility on the agent. So I decided we were going to send out our own cancellation letters. We're doing that through youve.com. When a policy goes into canceled status, triggers an automation that automatically sends a client a templated letter for the exact same cost as it would be for me to send it maybe a couple of cents more. That's really my favorite thing that we've done, because I don't know anybody else that's doing that. We're working on an ID card. By the time this airs, we'll have through there, we're going to send the client our ID card. And really kind of the epicenter of my agency is our automated onboarding process. We onboard that client the first 10 to 14 days with a series of text messages that kind of sets up how we want that client to communicate with us without really directly asking about it. So
now, when you set that up, I know when I think about automation, one of the companies I think of is Rocket Referrals.
Yeah.
Where you write a policy, they have a after sale marketing campaign that goes out 3 days, 7 days, whatever, however you set that up with them. Is that who you use for that automation on the client experience after the sale?
No, not currently. Currently, we're using Agency Elephant for that, which it does a lot more than that. And frankly, I mean, it's really, really good. We've got the Zapier connections and all that good stuff. But I feel like, and prior to this, 2 weeks ago, you guys heard an episode from Dr. Billy Williams where we talked about processes, and if we stick to the same process over and over and over, we can almost predict results. Well,
sure.
I figure with properly onboarding every client the exact same way at scale at a 30,000 foot view, it's very easy to predict what's going to happen after that.
Sure.
And if every single client is set up and onboarded the exact same way, we are going to have similar results. They are going to have similar results, and the carriers, I think, are going to have similar results. When you go to McDonald's in France, you're going to get the exact same experience that you get here. Not saying it's a good experience, but because they have that process, it's so.
Travis, go ahead.
It can be customized. Sorry. But I mean, even though the process is the same, it's unique to each person with automation.
True.
Because if they're with one company versus another, you could have, an email teaching them how to take advantage of the insurance company's portal. You could have a video that says, "Hey, you're with Safeco. Here's how you log in and get your own ID cards or check your own billing." Stuff like that will help cut down on a lot of the service calls you get to your agency.
Absolutely.
By onboarding them.
Yeah.
And there's a fantastic book that really helped me with the first 100 days. It was the first 100 days. I'll have to look it up. I can come back around. But there's a book on Amazon about the first 100 days in the client experience, how the onboarding process is so critical. And automation makes that so easy.
The first 100 days is, I think, the name of that. I'm looking at it right now.
Here's what I need. Here's what I need to tell Bradley and Travis, guys. And I'm talking to our listeners right now. So I represent all of you I'm no different than any of you are. And what I have to explain in some cases to guys like Travis and guys like Bradley is that we as a collective group of insurance agents that are listening to this right now, not only does the word automation scare us to death, and the reason why is because we really don't understand it. I don't understand automation very well. I mean, I think in the past month or two from talking with Bradley and being on some podcasts, I'm starting to learn it better and understand it more. But we don't even know what we don't know, if that makes sense. Like,
right.
When you and Travis, when y'all say the word automation, to us, it's like this word that's in the Webster's dictionary, and we're like, oh, we don't even understand like what that means.
I think automation can mean different things to different people. Don't you think so, Travis?
Yeah, it can. And I think that's part of the issue with the conversation in our industry is because a lot of people don't understand. I mean, think about, Henry Ford started producing cars, in an efficient manner. He created an automation process to develop that to where it's systematic and consistent.
Right.
But that creates efficiencies. But I think part of the struggle is a lot of people see it as a way to be lazy, and it's not really to make your life easier.
Right.
Right.
It's really to drive that customer experience so you have better retention and higher profitability. And like Bradley said, I think one of the key components is pairing that with a virtual assistant.
Yep. Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do it without it.
Our virtual assistant, next to a couple of different things, has been probably the best decision we've made.
Really?
In our agency. Just taking, not only so much off our plate, but I have a really, really, really good VA, and she doesn't miss anything.
Right.
And so not only is she triggering a lot of automations, but she's actually following up and making sure they're working.
Right.
Which is great.
I'm going to say this too, and maybe I'm speaking out of school. If I am, please somebody let me know. But, I don't know what the percentage is, but we have a large percentage of our audience who are captive agents who work for companies like Allstate, Nationwide, State Farm. And a lot of this automation stuff that we're talking about right now, those captive carriers already kind of have built-in automation that these captive agents don't really, they don't understand that, if you're a State Farm agent, you can click on paperless billing and stuff like that. Well, you don't have a lot of that on the independent side.
You have to duct tape it all together.
That's right. You're duct taping it all together. That's a great analogy. Where I think a lot of captive agents are like, shit, I don't understand what y'all are talking about. This is easy. Well, it's because on the back end, the captive carrier that we're talking about has already created a lot of that automation.
And the flip side, I tell people all the time, there's no one right way. I mean, captive, independent, semi, whatever you want. Like, figure out what works for you.
Right.
But that very reason may be the reason a lot of people are like, I'm glad I work for Farmers.
Right.
I don't have to worry about figuring all that out. Whereas at Bradley Flowers, I like trying to figure all that out.
Right.
I like when my phone system goes down and I have to figure out a better way for that to work where it doesn't happen again. I like building the automation and inputting the APIs, connecting the APIs so that when somebody calls my office and the CSR or the VA or one of my producers picks up the phone, that person's account pops up on the screen. Right. I like figuring all that out, but Scott Howell might not like figuring that out. And that's why I say automation is different things to different people. To some people, implementing a MailChimp campaign may be the greatest thing in the world. To me, that wouldn't even be the 10th most exciting thing that I did today.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't, until this podcast, given it a lot of thought, but I can see where captives would be a little bit, I don't want to say the word spoiled, but just they probably don't understand how much built-in automation there is based on the carrier's technology that
especially some of you guys. I mean, there's a lot behind that scenes.
Yes, yes.
Well, but they're also stuck in that box.
Right.
Exactly.
They can't differentiate themselves from the guy down the street.
Exactly.
And when I was at Farmers, they were just slinging spaghetti against the wall and see who sticks. And so it seemed like you would trip over a Farmers agent every time you took 4 steps.
Right.
Well, how do you stand out in a crowd like that?
And the carriers don't want you to.
They don't want you to, but man, you're a business owner, whether they treat you like it or not.
Exactly.
You got to do something to protect yourself because you live and die by what that company does. They make a decision like Nationwide did and kicked everybody independent. What are you going to do? You're not prepared for that.
Right. Well,
Or
you're
the
absolutely
consumer-
right.
Or the consumer behaviors are changing. Well, if your company's not keeping up with what the consumer wants,
Yeah.
that's hurting your business.
Well, it's the same reason we build our email and our text list with the podcast, because if Apple decides tomorrow that they don't like Scott's accent or my accent, or they don't like something about us, and they take us off the air, well, then we go somewhere else. We go over to Spotify.
Right.
We're going to send a text and an email to all those people. Same thing with, like you said, doing that automation to separate yourself. Because if the only reason that those people are with you is because you're with farmers, you got a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So the future of automation, do you have any thoughts on that, Travis, in terms of the next 5 to 10 years and where you see this thing going with AI and some of this other stuff that's kind of here now? Where do you see the future of automation going within the industry, specifically within agencies?
My personal opinion is, go back 10 years and there wasn't technology or software available to small business owners to do a tenth of the stuff that we can do today.
Right.
Without even thinking about it. And so, 5 years from now, it's only going to accelerate, and there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable conversations going on 5 years from now, because I started creating my own stuff inside the Microsoft ecosystem with on top of the Dynamics platform, because it's the only thing that I could truly run my entire business on, from first email in, connected across the board. Salesforce is the other one that's pretty close, but when you talk to a developer, there's a few hiccups that Salesforce has for what we're trying to do in the insurance world.
Right.
But it's not just automating with the consumer's experience. It'll play into your employee experience
Yep.
and your carrier experience in the next 5 years.
Do you use Microsoft Power Apps? Okay. Yeah, I talked to a guy recently that's using that to essentially build his own rater.
Wow.
Yeah.
With that through a web scraping program, so it'll basically enter 90% of the information in there and then transfer that over to the carrier site, and he can finish the quote.
So Travis, did you build?
You don't need API access anymore.
You just map it.
With the stuff Microsoft's provided, you don't need API access.
So Travis, did you build your own agency management system? Is that basically what you did?
It's not a management system right now. I could. Basically what we're doing is we're controlling. When I looked at where to apply technology to where I get the biggest bang,
right,
because of the age of our agency and the client base that we had, the service side is where I saw the most cost savings and where I could apply efficiencies more so than the marketing side. Because most agencies out there, unless you're generating your own Facebook leads or paying for leads or dialing for dollars, you don't need, because what are you tracking? 5, maybe 10, if we're talking about, the bulk of the agencies out there. So if you can't keep track of that without applying automation, then you got bigger issues.
Right.
But where do you make your money? It's all in renewals. So how do you super serve your consumer that's purchasing from you and exceed the expectation? It's all on the back end. And if you don't keep the policies from flowing out the door on the backside,
right,
it's really hard to grow.
Right.
And that, to be honest, that's probably where the captives really would, enjoy the most benefit, because those dudes work their butt off just to keep stuff on the books.
Sure. Oh, trust me, I know. Well, and I'll tell you this. I'm going to tell you this too, and you can feel my pain on this. You're a captive agent, and the company that you represent takes like double-digit rate increase or rate increase on top of rate increase year over year. Well, now you're playing defense all the time because your current client base is calling over there 3 or 4 people a day that are getting renewals going, hey, if you don't get this down, we're leaving. And so that puts you in the mode of playing defense all the time with your, hell, even your salespeople, because they're just trying to keep what's on the books.
Right.
Right.
So I've experienced that.
Think about, we've been in business over 10 years now. So how many people do you interact with each year going to the front side of using technology, on the sales side? How many people do you talk to each year that you don't win the business? After 4 or 5 years, if you just keep cycling through those same people over and over again every year automatically, and just talking to them like, hey, I know your renewal's coming up. Can we talk again?
Yep.
Or, hey, your ticket fell off. Can we talk again? Things have changed. Or, lifestyle, now we can track stuff on the internet with, your lifestyle's changed. I get alerts now like, oh, they interacted with this social post on Facebook.
Right.
Oh, they had a baby. Okay. Hey, life changed. Can we talk again? We're talking to them outside of the renewal periods. And you never have to buy another lead again if you keep track of that stuff all the way through.
Yep. If I could tell new agents one automation they have to have is get you some kind of platform that does automated text messages and put all your X dates in there. Every time you quote somebody that you don't write them, put them in there and set it up to send them a text 30 days, 45 days, 15 days, whatever your sweet spot is, before their X date the next year. And like Travis said, after a long time, you're going to have a database so big, if you just even have just a 1% conversion, it works out.
Right.
And here's the key, for me at least. Travis may disagree with this, but when I type that automated text message up, I have software that will take their first name out of their account and put it in there, so it's personalized. Hey, Scott. But I type it in a way that is very Bradley. It's not, your insurance is coming up for renewal. We would really like to take a look. Reply stop to no longer receive these text messages, and it's a 5-digit number. No, it's your office number. It's your office number, and it's, hey, Miss Johnson, it's Bradley. How you doing? Everything good? Personalize that as much as you can.
Right.
Make it your words. And I was actually even yesterday while we were in between podcasts kind of looking at some of our text and for our agency, and I need to tweak a few things in our onboarding because it just doesn't sound like me. It's very, and what actually made me realize that is I wrote a buddy of mine and I was looking at his responses to the text. Not that he said anything, but I was reading the text that we sent, and I said, yeah, he knows that's not me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't text him that way, so we're even constantly auditing ourselves in that regard.
And tell our audience how you're doing that particular, when you're entering the prospect's information in the CRM system.
Yep.
You're entering their X date, obviously, right?
So we have an automation within our system it's a custom date. And so what happens is either the producer, the CSR, or the VA enters that X date in there.
Right.
And eventually we'll have this where they don't even have to enter it in there, but enters the X date in there, and it knows that because that date is in there, it's going to text them 30 days before that date next year.
Right.
And then the onboarding is we have a new business handoff email that once the producer writes the account, it's a templated email. The producer fills it out. It goes to the VA, and the VA enters everything on the back end. And based on answers in that templated email, it tells the VA what campaign to put them in, what to do, and then they start getting those messages immediately.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
And we actually just recently had to change that because we do a lot of lender referrals, and we train all of our lenders or encourage all of our lenders to send us the referral early in the process. So we're getting people at 60, 75 days sometimes before closing. And what happens is because we're quoting it that early, a lot of times we get the request for insurance very early. Well, I had a lady that got all 14 text messages before she ever even closed on the house.
Right.
And she sends us a text. She's like, I ain't even closed on the damn house yet, and all that, So we recently had to change it where they don't start getting those texts until their closing date or their effective date.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Well, in your program, you can set up stages, and so once they move to that new stage, they get the appropriate message.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Travis,
And that's where going back to having it mapped out in the beginning on what you want it to look like. That's the biggest key to it right there.
Yep.
Sure.
And a lot of that too, us being so new, I mean, we kind of had to figure out a lot of that as we went, like that problem I just detailed. I mean, we came across it, I probably wouldn't have thought of that beforehand,
That's where failure makes your success.
That's right.
Absolutely. Travis, I appreciate you being on the show today. I got to cut it off just a little bit early. We've got another show coming up here in just about 15 minutes, but I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I hope that the one thing that we got out of this was just the conversation about automation, because I do know there are a lot of guys and girls out there like me that are scared of the word. And I think what we've done today is give them some real life examples. And Bradley, I appreciate you sharing those with us.
Well, I think what you do, Scott, is write out your process for everything. And I know you probably have already done that.
Well,
write out your process. We
talked about that yesterday.
Write out your process and then get with somebody like Travis.
Right.
And look for ways to automate certain steps in those processes.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree with that, Travis?
Yeah, start simple. But I mean, even before that, join the automated insurance.
There you go.
There you go.
Get into the conversation. Start asking questions. Start listening to what other people say. 12 months from now, you'll be like, oh, man, I'm a pro. But when I first got in here, I was so scared because you just don't know the lingo.
Right.
Just be around it and you'll learn more.
Hey, Travis, is there a Facebook group that I'm a member of that's the automated?
Yeah, you're in there.
Am I? Okay. Because I think I've seen some posts from there. And again, I'm looking at those posts and I'm like, I don't even know what these people are talking about right now. But you're right.
It'll make sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's like shooting a free throw. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, guys, listen, you're going to have to be like Scott, and you're going to have to stop being afraid of the word automation, and you're going to have to figure out ways that you can automate some things in your agency, not for yourself, but for your team members and employees and for your customers, for your clients, to help kind of make that easier and more fluid and make sure they get what they need. The technology is available now. You've got people like Travis that can help you with that. Go join that Facebook group and see if you can be like me and use the year 2020 to tighten up and learn more about automation in your agencies. And like I always say, get your ass out from behind that desk today and go out there in the big bad world and sell insurance. Make money for your family, for your wife, for your kids, for your husband, for your parents that are struggling, and write good business for the agencies that you represent, and write good business for the companies that you represent. Travis, thank you, brother. We love you. Bradley Flowers, I love you, man.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Travis.
Guys, you are listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we'll see you back here real soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Insurance Guys podcast. If you need to know more about me or you need to get in touch with Scott, you can always reach me at theinsuranceguyonline.com or email me at iprotectins@gmail.com. And if you need to get in touch with Mr. Bradley Flowers, go to bradleyflowersinsurance.com or email him at bradley@saralandinsurance.com. Guys, we love you. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to being with you again real soon on the next episode of The Insurance Guys. Take care.